Wow, so that was an emotional roller coaster. Hello, welcome back to my channel Christian Faith and Fiction. My name's Lou, and today I want to share with you my book review for the book The Words We Lost by Nicole Deese. This is a Christian contemporary romance novel. It is releasing on the 11th of April, and it's being published by Bethany House. I requested this book through NetGalley because I've heard a lot of good things about Nicole Deese's writing from other booktubers here, and I wanted to try one of her books, and this one sounded like it's really interesting. So I requested it through NetGalley, and Bethany House very kindly let me have an advanced ebook copy for free to read and review. The story follows Ingrid, who is an editor at a publishing house, and she has a best friend who has been publishing her books with her. She's a writer. And unfortunately, she passed away, and she was in the middle of writing a fantasy series. So 4 books have been published, but the 5th book was never found. So it's sort of missing somewhere, and Ingrid is still having to deal with her grief, her reactions to grief. She's really trying to hide from her grief and her emotions and her memories. But this missing manuscript is out there, and Ingrid is finding, because of her grief, that her brain is not functioning so well. She's getting what I would call brain fog. That's something that I suffer from myself, but not from grief, from a chronic illness. But she's struggling to process words. It's affecting her job, and so she gets this ultimatum given to her basically by her boss, saying either you go retrieve this missing manuscript or you're going to lose your job. In order to go and retrieve this manuscript, though, she has to go back to the hometown where she spent a lot of her childhood, where this other writer, Cece, lived and died, and where her family lives, and where also Ingrid's ex-boyfriend is living. And she's got to face up to a lot of memories. She has to sort of come to terms and face up to the pain and grief that she's been carrying, which she's been refusing to deal with. And so it's quite a heavy topic, definitely very heavy on the grief. Lots of people there are grieving, and it was a heavier book in that sense, but Nicole Deese did a really good job of balancing out the intense emotional times with some lighter times, some friendships, the sort of lighter side of romance as well, and lighter events that are going on. It really swung between that sort of intense emotional heaviness that comes through dealing with looking at someone who's dealing with grief and memories from the past and past pain, and then the sort of lighter side of that sort of friendships and events, the things that were going on in the present. It's written in 2 perspectives. So Ingrid's perspective is written in first person present tense, and then there's another perspective that's written in third person past tense. I felt like the pacing was really good, and it didn't drag for me at all. It was hard to read at times, but she wrote it really well. And from her author's note, she talks about her own experience with grief, and actually that was really helpful to read at the end of the story. Although this is a contemporary romance, I think the main story for me was really Ingrid's inner journey, and the journey that she takes through her memories and processing her emotions and growing in that and having to deal and face up to the grief that she's carrying. The outer plot was also good as well. There's some mysteries that are involved in that, and some revelations that take place through the book that sort of you get as you're going along, and that really held the story together. The characters in the book, several of them are Christians. It's very obvious that they are, and their faith is part of their lives. But the main point of the book is really sort of the emotional part of them rather than spiritual. But it is there, and it is obvious. Overall, I thought it was very well written, and I was really emotionally invested in the characters. Definitely a very good contemporary book. I own some of Nicole Deese's other earlier books, so I haven't read any of those yet. So I would like to read some of those in the future for sure. I think she was a very good writer, and this one was definitely worth reading for me, even though I don't tend to read sort of heavier contemporary romances normally. This one I think is just very well written, if you're in the right headspace for that type of book. Content warnings, I would say the obvious one is for grief and the death of a loved one. You might find it triggering. On the other hand, you might find it cathartic to go through it. So that I'll leave that decision up to you. There are some other stuff that happens in the reveals, but I can't tell you about those because it would be big spoilers. But if there's something that you really specifically want to know about, you can ask me privately, and I'll be able to tell you if it's there or not, or if you want to know specifically and you don't mind about spoilers, I can tell you that. Somewhere else, private message me on Instagram or something like that. So I gave my story enjoyment rating of this book 10 out of 10. Definitely was worth reading. Definitely was worth sort of pushing through and reading that sort of heavier content, which I don't normally read. I thought it was really, really well written. And the Christian faith rating of 2 out of 3. Okay, let me know in the comments if you've read any of Nicole Deese's books, and if any of those, which one would be your favourite, and if this is the sort of book that you would like to pick up in the future. I hope you're having a really great reading week, and until next time, God bless. Bye.